Hello everybody and welcome to another tutorial in camera and lens repair. And this time will also be a lens repair. And a friend of mine asked me if I could take a look at this In Ai-s Nikkor 24mm and aperture 2 because it has a quite stiff, not really good focus ring. So in this case, it will be the disassemble process. Of course, there will be another part which will be the assemble process. But as I was into this lens, jump into it and make a hell of a lot of notes. As you can see, I will go through them. But it's a different lens than if you think of the 24mm 2.8. Yeah, they are quite similar, but not. So yeah, let's have some tools, just different screwdrivers, tweezers, and of course JIS screwdrivers. See, hopefully you can see it here. It says JIS, and this is a 2.5mm. And if you use a Phillips driver, yeah, you will have problem with the screws. Well, some tweezers can be straight and curved. Some dentist tool, especially with a very pointy one, and a spade look-alike like this. Something to scratch on the, not on the lens, but inside the different components, rings and threads and helicoids and so on. We need to, because the repair manual, if you can find one, I haven't seen any, it doesn't tell you, I think it doesn't tell you anything about how to put the threads on. So something to scratch on. This is actually a very good tool called the FlexiFile, with two very pointy tips which you can exchange. And there is a bigger one in the other end. But I also like to use my old dentist tool with a very pointy tip. So and we, of course, yes, we also need some rubber tools. It is very essential in this case. This is a famous from Japan Hobby Tool, 6 different cones. And I also go into the hardware store and buy me some gaskets for different plumbing tubes and so on. It's extremely sticky, which is also good. And of course we also need some nail polish remover with acetone, or you could just use pure acetone, or you could also use isopropyl alcohol like this, 99%, or something like that. And of course some cotton buds of different size is good. Yeah, let's jump into it. It's also good to have, if you have those rubber tools. I modified mine here, but it's good to have some of the lens standing on it when you work on it on different parts, which I will show you. So now, to come into this lens, yeah, we need to take off the the rubber grip. I don't know the name of it, but use the spade or something like maybe some wooden stick or so to dig in under the rubber, and gently, not pulling too much of it out of it, because it can be brittle. So and then you go around, and at the same time you push that way up with the tool or your finger, and in that way get it out of the focusing ring, so it without making any scratch or something. it's easy to take off. Yeah, that's it. Now, then we could come into the focusing ring, under the focusing ring, and you see the little hole here? Well, it could be a screw hole, but well, in some cases it is a screw hole with a set screw in that locks the front part of this ring here. You can see it's split in two. And because we need to go into there is a little set screw somewhere in here in the front name ring, and it's because the front name ring holds the whole lens assembly in place in the focusing assembly. So that's why we need to dig in under this. But as with many older lenses, not only Nikkor, Nikon Nikkor, they use thread lock, and this lens they actually use a lot. So I tried with the isopropyl alcohol, a lot of it, and I also try with a lot of nail polish remover with acetone, and simply, as I will show here, it doesn't have to be much. If I can get that out here, and you simply, and it's good to have some kind of ventilation. So simply put the nail, I mean the button, cotton bud, into the fluid, the solvent, and simply add a lot of it, and it has to really soak on in this, and you also can go around here with a lot more nail polish remover or acetone or something, because I mean in this case here it's really tight. Now, so to get it off, well, you can use maybe some of the rubber tools here, but well, they are not big enough. I mean, maybe the biggest is big enough, which is this one, I guess. It could be you can come over it, but the problem is that the rubber here is not sticky enough. So I again went to the plumbing section and simply made me a tool. This is just a rubber gasket, just like this one, just smaller, I mean bigger, and it's actually 55 millimeter in diameter in here, and it's easy to put it over here. So you can see it fits on here, and because of the rubber is really sticky, it is possible to unscrew this ring here. So let's do that. The focusing ring has to be on infinity and simply have a good grip, I mean really good grip, and in that way you can simply unscrew it. Just you have to loosen it, but before doing so, just make things a little more easier. You see, this ring sits good and tight, but before I took it apart, I set a little mark here, which you can see here, and simply make a scratch here. No one will ever see it except if they disassemble it. So it's important to set some marks around. Maybe it's not all the places, but still, remember there's no repair manual for this lens. Of course, somebody might have one, I guess. So nothing special about that. Simply put it away. And then we look into the little set screw that actually hold the front ring in place. And before I unscrew that, I mean unscrew the name ring, there was also there was also some thread lock, and if you look here, I will do it again and simply suck it into something nail polish remover, and it makes things a lot easier because you do not damage the screw, the set screw. And I will use a 1.2 millimeter flathead screwdriver to unscrew it, but wait a little. We need to have the back part here because this lens has the special system called CRC, close range. So it will say the lens is in a smaller design. They can keep it in a smaller design, and that's why you see the front lens part will move as I turn the focusing ring, but also the back part here will also turn because it has its own helicoid. I mean, there is a helicoid for the focusing ring, of course, but as because this is a little different system that Nikon developed, and it's called CRC. So to get into that, we need to unscrew the 3 screws, but there will also be some other issues with this, as I will show you. I found out that to make it easier to get into the back here, also again, I used a lot of thread, nail polish remover here on the 3 screws. They sit extremely tight. So again, you really have to suck the screws into really a lot of nail polish remover or isopropyl alcohol. If not, you can probably damage the screw head, and then you have another problem. Now I will take off the black part here because it makes things so much easier. So, and keep the screws in a safe place. The back ring here can only sit in one position, so there's no problem. And those 3 screws didn't sit that tight. So, and now I can take that off. Nothing special about that. And it's because it will make things so much easier when you assemble it again to have that ring off. So now if we look into here, you can see when I turn the focusing ring, the inside, the internal part and the whole back lens group will also turn and go in and out. Now we'll take off the 3 screws here. It can sit tight even if I have been into it before, but hopefully they are not. Yeah, still okay. It looks like they are non-magnetic. So and you can see the white stuff here. Hopefully you can see the white stuff here on the screw. Come on, focus. Oh, there. You can see the white stuff here is all the thread lock they put on. So, and the mount is a bit tricky to set on when you assemble it again, because of it's not made the normal normal way. I mean, there are many different ways it can be put on and assembled. So all three screw out. Now I found out set it the aperture to 22 will make things a little easier, at least when we assemble it. So now it's ready to be taken out, and we can just move it a little, and it's better if you turn it over like this, because it looks like this. You see there there is a ring here with a little pin, and the little pin is actually going on to, remember how it's set, this little pin here is going to that little I don't know what's called, stop part of, and it has to sit like this when you assemble it again. It will make things so much easier, because you see the hook, kind of a fork or something, it's going on to the aperture pin in here. That'll actually move the internal aperture, and yeah, I will, and the little cutout here for the aperture pin is also here. That's why the aperture has to sit on 22. Just remember that. Now we can put this aside, and we can also take off the aperture ring itself. We will not need that to anything in this case. Now then we can look into the focusing system, which is quite interesting. And before we look, I mean, we do anything, set the focus to infinity. That's our starting point before we disassemble anything of the of the focusing assembly. So now make a scratch somewhere in here. I've made some scratch, but at least one here on the, see the ring here that moves. That's the back helicoid. I mean the back lens group with its helicoid. And at infinity we have here, you simply set a scratch here, but you also set a mark deeper in here on the well, the back part of the lens assembly. It will say not that part that moves, but you simply set make a little arrow or something. So a scratch here and then an arrow, and I actually made a little infinity mark, which will make it easier for me to remember where infinity is. Because on the other hand, I also set, when the lens is set to near end, I also set a mark over here. I mean the same scratch as I use over here, I can reuse over here and make a scratch here on the inside here on the back, and set an N as for near end. And also remember to set, you see the little bracket here, which is set in with 2 screws. It's also the connection from the back helicoid to the actual focus helicoid, focusing ring helicoid system. And it's also very good to set a scratch here on one side over here. I already did it, and you can, just to make sure, make a 2 scratch here, make here on the black part and also on the bracket itself. Because if you just take out that bracket here, you have no idea where the focus actually is, as the lens was original put together. So that's good to know. And then I can actually take it apart, because that's the absolutely important part. I will show it as we come closer into it. Now I can take off the name ring and get rid of the lens assembly and take it out. So off with the, just unscrew the little set screw here. Something like that. Come on. Just loosen it a little. Just 2-3 turns. And before I actually take it apart, more scratch. You see the set screw here. It will make it much more easier when you assemble it again. Set a scratch here in the middle of the screw hole, because then you know where the set screw has to sit when you screw the name ring in. If you just screw it on and tighten it, it will not be the correct place, as I will show you in a short time. So we just unscrew it. And you see, back then when it was assembled, there's a little, what do you say, where the screw was, the set screw was originally set in. There is no other place it can sit. So that's why it is important to set a mark here, so you know where it sits. Because if not, if you just tighten it and screw the set screw in, it will stick out a little too much and scratch the inside here. And the focusing ring can also be a little tight to actually turn. That was part of it. And now, before I take anything apart, set it on infinity and also make a scratch in here. You see the little screw, which is not a screw. There's actually a guide pin that when the lens assembly can be pulled out, it will sit there, and that's funny enough, in line with the index mark here. And the little screw here is also in line with the index mark. So we can just make a scratch down here somewhere, so we know where it should sit. That was it. Then I can pull it out. Wiggle it a little. And you see the back. Infinity. Yes. Check. So I can just pull it out. And then we have the whole lens assembly. And as I mentioned before, see the mark here, which is in line with the mark I set before. So now I know exact position of this helicoid. So if I turn it, see, you can turn it and it will go in and out. You cannot really turn it because it will hit the aperture pin here. So that's why you need to take that bracket out. That's why I set those marks here. So I know exactly where it should sit when I assemble it again. So that's important. We just park this a little and continue with the focusing helicoid. And there are some guides here, as I said. So this is my notes, and we take them in a step. You see, and we need a, of course I forgot that, we need a caliper. So, yeah, let's see. At infinity, from the front of the focusing ring to the back is 32.55 millimeter. It will say up here. So let's see if it goes that way. Yeah, you can see from the front of the focusing ring to the very back here is 32.55. And we can also do it again. From the front of the inner helicoid to the back is, yeah, something like 34.99 millimeter. You see? So that's also good to know. And of course I need to take off the focusing ring and measure from the front of the middle helicoid. And the middle helicoid is actually the focusing ring is screwed into that. So off of that ring here is just a brass ring, so there shouldn't be any problem. And it's good the screws are magnetic. So it's good with a magnetized screwdriver. So that's it. And infinity, yeah. So I can take out the brass ring here with a dentist tool. Do not bend it. You see, the way the focusing ring, the outer focusing ring, it's screwed into the middle helicoid is simply by pressing this brass ring between the two and then screw it in. You can see here. So now I can just lift it off without any problem. Nothing special. There is a stop here on, maybe it's difficult to see there, and of course the other end. So now we are inside so we can see the middle helicoid, and we can also measure from the front, and it will say the front, it's not the very front of it, it will say not out there but there. You see there is a kind of a shoulder here, so it will be from that yeah, that area here. So we can measure again. See, something like 24.51 millimeter. As you can see here, that's what I measured there. And now I know that position is correct. I will set here a scratch here on that part of it. It's actually the main body of the yeah, barrel says. And make a little arrow and set an infinity mark so you know where it should be. Then set a mark here in line, and the on the helicoid, middle helicoid, then in infinity mark. On the inner helicoid, also make a mark in line with the two other and make a infinity mark. That's important. That's very important. I mean, we have our measure here of the length at infinity, so that's that's good notes. It could be different in yours. It might be, but it could also be near close to me to what I measured. Now, to get closer into it, yeah, we will just do a little thing before we take in any more parts. And it is, you see, the helicoid key, the two, one here and one there. It's important they sit the correct place as I see it. And that's why I set on one side here, make a scratch 1, and on the other, of course, there will be 2 scratch. And also on the helicoid key itself, make a scratch here. And also, just because it will not confuse you, when you assemble it again, make 1 scratch in here related to the other one here and here. And you do the exact same thing over here. Make 2 scratch here, 2 scratch on the helicoid key, and 2 scratch inside here. So you know the exact position of those parts. You see, they are not opposite each other 180 degree. So there is a yeah, just to you, I hope you get it. Yeah, and then I will take off the click spring for the aperture ring. And also a good thing, it is actually important. You see, this spring can sit this way or the other way over here. Depends on how you turn it. But it has to sit like this. So to not confuse yourself, make a scratch here and a scratch here. Because then you know the exact position of this spring. Just to make things clear. So now I can unscrew those tiny screws with a 1.8 millimeter flathead screwdriver. And it's 0.3 thick of the end here. They are also magnetic, so it's easy. So there. And off with that little spring here. And now we know how it should sit. I mean, during the process you can also take pictures of how things should sit when you go through the process. It's recommended. Now then I will take off the index ring here, and again it was sitting extremely tight. So again I use the nail polish remover and just add a lot of it on each of the screws, there, and the last one. So remember that. And small notes, you see the stop here, it sits close to the index scratch I made, and also you have the mark up here. That's important, and there is probably no one to ask how they should sit if you get wrong. That's why it is so good to set marks. Yep. Still tight. They really use a lot of thread lock in this lens. So So there. And then we can take off this ring, hopefully. Then it can come off. It can only be put in that way. It's not at all possible to put it in the other way. So it is. Now, further into it, and then we have our naked helicoid. And you see, I was a little confused about, okay, how the hell do I get this pin out? That's the connection bracket to the back of the helicoid, the back lens group helicoid. And you simply need to unscrew the outer helicoid first, or you can take the inner helicoid. No, you can't, because if you look here, when I turn the focusing ring and I want to get to take them apart, you cannot turn it, because see, begins at infinity, and then the bracket goes all the way over to the other, I mean to number 1 helicoid key, so it cannot be taken off. And of course the other way around, it's not even possible. So that's why it is it's necessary to unscrew the two helicoid keys. So we'll do that. Just start with number 1. And also, before I take it apart, I make the scratch here on each of the helicoid key. So it was scratched here and also up here. So the mark is in line with each other. And I will say the same over here. So you know the exact position of this. It would be a little, when you put the 2 helicoid keys in, don't screw them tight until you have moved the helicoid key, the helicoids back and forth, so they can align in a way. Now, off of those, let's continue into the rest of it. They're also magnetic. So the other one, we have the says on infinity, fine. And out with that helicoid key. Now, then we have our naked helicoid system, and we can just unscrew it. But before we do that, I also make some notes, of course. You see, the helicoids has to be turned in, let's say, different turns, 4, 5, maybe 10 turns, maybe 2 turns, whatever, different lenses. And I can only take 1 helicoid at a time. So that's why if you just take them apart, whoa, and you forgot to set the off mark, which is really important. That's why I set my reference is the index mark. I mean the infinity mark, blah. So and so I found out, well, the outer helicoid has to come off first before you actually can take the inner helicoid and the middle helicoid, because still the bracket in here will block for both the one side and the other side where the helicoid key was. That's why the outer helicoid has to come off first. And it has to be turned if we look from behind the back, has to be turned clockwise. So if we turn it like this, my starting point is important. And it has to be turned almost, and just my notes here, one note at a time. The outer helicoid comes off after almost 5 turns, and it will come off at around, yeah, well, if we look into it, around 2 o'clock, related to a watch. So let's see, yeah. So I will just count. It's better if I have it so. So it says 1, 2, 3, 4. And now come to the point. Well, it's actually, it depends on how you see it. It could be at 10 o'clock or it could be at 2 o'clock. It depends how you see it from the front or the back. So I go for the 2 o'clock as I go first. So now it's now I have turned it 4 turns. So I need the 5, almost the 5 turns. 5 turn. So be careful, because you can feel it's a bit loose, and the more loose it will be, the more care you have to take of when it comes off the thread. And it'll be something like, yeah, then it comes off. It's where you set a mark and you keep them together. You do not just take them off and, oh yeah, how low, oh, and you lose your track of where it came off. Now it's not a problem for me because I already set the mark, but the off mark, that's very, very important, because it's your reference when you put it back in again. So set a scratch here. This is my starting point, I mean my infinity mark, and then you set another scratch here, and you could, just like I wrote in here, scratch it off. Now I'm 100% sure it can only sit that way. It will make things a lot easier when you have cleaned them and grease them and put them back together. It's the same thing. Well, we are not there yet. You see the bracket in here where the stop is when you turn it. You see there, cannot come off. So again, that's the inner helicoid. And the inner helicoid is comes off after, well, 3/4 turn. It will say from 12 o'clock all the way to 9 o'clock. So we're just related to o'clock. Or you could also set it's a 3/4 turn, but it comes off around 3 o'clock when I look into the helicoids here. So now when I see it from the front, so now I can take off this bracket or whatever it calls, and also again more scratch. See, so now you know where it should sit, and that could be important. Maybe it can sit opposite direction, I don't know, but better make a scratch. You can make 2 scratches, so there and there. The screws are countersunk, so I guess it's not a big problem, so we can just unscrew them. And there again, I also use a lot of on this bracket. Also use a lot of nail polish remover here on this because they also use a lot of thread lock. And here you could actually add some through the hole here, those 2 holes, and in that way soften the old thread lock. So off with that. So it is, and off with the little piece of aluminium. Now, since I set a mark here on both the inner helicoid and the middle helicoid, I know where it should sit, even if I turn it. But as I said, the inner helicoid has to come off because the thread is more not so fine, so it has you have to turn it a few turns, and this is only 3/4 turn. So now I have my mark here on the middle helicoid, and then I can turn from my point here, turn it, and in that way have a good hand on both of it. It will say when it comes off, you just stop. So let's see how it will go. It'll maybe a little loose. Oh, there it off. Let's see where my mark was. You see my mark here on the inner helicoid, and here it was actually where it came off. So if we look from the front, this is my starting point, unscrew it, and it came off here at around 3 o'clock, looking from the front. I hope it makes sense. You could also make your own notes and see it from the back. It depends, but still be very sure when the helicoid get off the thread. We can just try to put it back in again, and here we are back. So it's extremely important to set those marks that no one will see ever, except if they take it apart. See, it comes off here. So that's extremely important. And yeah, that's it. So it's time for cleaning the focusing helicoid. But before doing so, I will also continue with the back of it will say the back helicoid, the CRC. And again, an infinity, and well, the infinity, yeah. As it in the beginning, after I took off the mount, I make a scratch here when the lens assembly was still in the focusing system. So now I know that position, and also have the scratch here on the bracket. So now I can take it off, but it's good to measure. This is important also because we have to measure at infinity from the, hope you can see it, from the back here, I would say here, onto the main part of the lens assembly to this part here. I mean that it should be the back of it up to here, and it should be at infinity. So I will just measure. Should be something like 2.6 millimeter. So something like that. Well, yeah, here we are, 2.6. And to get it off, you need to take off that bracket here. And since I set those marked, it should not be a problem. It sits with small screws, and they use some kind of a varnish over the screws to lock them in place. So now, off with that off with that bracket here. So, and now I begin with my reference mark here. See, and then turn it. It will say clockwise, seeing from the back. So there, and it should be something like 1.5 turn, something like that. It will come off over here, I know that because I set a mark. No, sorry, it will come off right down here where I set an off scratch. So now here, turn it, and that was one full turn, and something like half turn more down to here, and we can just go down there, and then it's off. So if we look into it again, seeing from another direction, just put it on again if I can, like this, there, and simply turn it clockwise, one full turn there, and a half a turn until it comes off. So now we have the back helicoid, and this is the back lens group. And you see, to the helicoid in here is quite not easy to reach. So that's why I need to take off take out the back lens group. And then I have my problems. Because again, you see this little hole here, it's where, maybe there should be a small set screw, but it's not, it's just a hole. So by adding a lot, I really add a lot of both nail polish remover and isopropyl alcohol, let it stay there for a long time, and simply add it here along the edge. Here you can see the where they are screwed into each other, and all the way around here, a lot of thread lock. I mean nail polish remover. So to take them apart, take care of the lens in here, I simply use my my rubber cone here and take a little a bigger one. Nah, not this one. Take number 4 because it can go over here. See the little number here on the edge. And also use my plumbing rubber tool and simply add this into here. It's good, it's flexible. Put it in here. And if you put just the rubber tool here on here, you might take off the back. You see, I mean, I know it's difficult. There's a ring here. Then there is a section where the rest of the lenses is. I mean, this is just a ring that hold the back, the very back lens into place. But I found out if I take that ring off first and then have a good grip on the rubber tool here around the edge here, I managed to unscrew it. So let's see if it's possible. It is now. Oh, I just forgot one thing. It's good to set a mark where the lenses sit. So do yourself a favor and make a scratch here in line over the 2 parts here. So you, when you screw them in again, know where they should sit. Now they are loose and you can just unscrew it. No problem with that. So, and then it comes off. Now we have the whole back lens group out. And then we can see the back helicoid. I need to clean those with the sometimes I use lighter fluid and other times I use petroleum odorless, which I like. I mean, not to drink, but it's good to work with and doesn't stink. So put the lens into the number 3 and it can sit safely there. So that's all the parts for the helicoid system in this lens. And yeah, I will just clean them and went back. Oh, sorry. Of course, I also need to clean the back here, but I will do that with some cotton buds and of course petrol or lighter fluid, and then use a microfiber cloth to wipe the off, because I do not want to take off the whole, disassemble the whole yeah, with the aperture blades and all that stuff. And I think it will be fine enough to just clean the thread here. So see you soon. Yeah, then we will continue with the assembly process of the In Ai-s Nikkor 24mm to aperture 2 with a stiff focus ring. But now it's not that stiff anymore, so I cleaned the helicoids here and it looks nice, fine. And I also cleaned the back helicoid here on the lens assembly, so it will be nice and fine. And I will use the Liqui Molly LM47 MOS2 And it goes from minus 30 degree up to plus 130 degree Celsius. And I really like this grease because it's yeah, I think it works really good. It has been in this container for months. I mean really months in hot and cold temperatures, and there is no not really any separation, so it's good. So let's see how it will work with this lens with the CRC helicoids. So now I will just lube it with a fine brush, and I just attached a little plastic thingy so the brush can stand here without touching the my work desk area. So I will just continue with add a little. Doesn't have to be much. It depends on how much we'll use. Well, let's see. And let's be practical. I think I will put in the, yeah, of course I have to put the inner and the middle helicoid first, because then I can put in the little metal stopper here. So that's the way it works. And yeah, I can just lube it here, add some grease. And since it's only a thin grease film, I think it will be very interesting to see how it will act in this lens. I'll just use a cotton bud to wipe away the rest of it if there's too much. And of course there has to be some. And we just go all the way around and put it in the helicoid, the middle helicoid it will say. And since I have a mark here which I set in the very beginning, you might remember, it's the infinity mark. And I also set it on the middle helicoid, which is this mark, but here is my off mark, which will be the when I put the two helicoids together, I know how many turns it will as we go to the notes. That's very important. And just have this one. See, the inner helicoid comes off after 3/4 turn and off with around 3 o'clock. The inner helicoid, which will be this one, I will put together with the middle. It comes off, yeah, where was it? Yeah. Where was it? Was it here? Yeah. The inner here comes off after 3/4. So I set it into my off mark here and catch the thread, click it set, and I just go all the way up to my infinity mark here. And then you can simply move it good and let the grease come onto the middle helicoid, and then take it off again. Doesn't have to be too much. And then I can wipe away the rest of it with a cotton bud. So That's all fine. And yeah. So we can also see how much is left here and wipe that away. So there will be all fine. Not on this thread. Okay, another cotton bud. We have a lot of them. It's really good to have many of them when you're working with that kind of equipment. So, and there doesn't have to be much here. Well, they also have to be on the guide pins, not on those two, but the guide pin that is screwed onto those here. So let's see if I have my mark here, my off mark is here, and it should be here. Catch the threads, and it can be a little tricky, and then turn it to the infinity mark here. I think it looks like it's pretty good. Now then I can put my stop on, which has to sit here, in here, and then with a screwdriver and a screw. So there. So then it will be that. Then screw it in, and now we are safe to have the second screw. So tighten it good, not too much. There. And now yeah, I think it was pretty good. It has a good, not too loose and not too tight. Now then the let's see, the inner helicoids from no. So the outer helicoid comes, we'll measure after it. And the outer helicoid comes off after 5 turns, so I will put the outer helicoid here, and I have my off mark somewhere. It is here, because I set it on this ring. Oh, yeah, you see, I was wrong. It's the off mark here. Of course I should have taken, it was just because the feeling of the helicoid was not correct, so I'll just take it off again. So you see, sometimes you can get confused of the marks, sometimes they will be really good. No one is perfect. So I will just unscrew it again, so it comes off. Then I have my, it was just because the light was not shining on the I saw this off, which should be up here, which will be this one. There was something wrong. Yeah, it feels better. And now the distance, I can see the distance is correct. And then I can put in my little piece of stop here. Sorry for that. So there, tiny screw. So tighten it good. So, and now we are ready for the outer helicoid, and it will be that mark here, which I said. Oh, sorry. You see, the arrow is facing that way. Okay, yeah, it goes fine. So now I will add some more grease here, and do that. I mean, I could also do it on this, the middle helicoid. Doesn't really matter. And it's be careful of have the grease good into the thread. So there, it will be fine, I think. So there, then we almost there. So, and we can just wipe away the rest of it. Let's see, this goes this way, and then we can take the rest here. Yeah, I think it's all fine. Now my my off mark and my infinity mark here, so I should be able to wiggle a little and click the says, and then I have my infinity mark. You see, there's a little difference in between the off mark and the infinity mark, so this is why it is important. So I have I mean, at least, I mean, almost 5 turns till the helicoid come off. So now I have the almost 1 turn, and then it will be 1, I mean, yeah, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And of course the almost 1 turn also. So it will, I will end it up with almost 5 turns. So now it's I can put in the helicoid key, and you see the numbers here, and it will say I have a number here on this side of the helicoid, and it says 1, and I also make a scratch here in the beginning which also says 1, and on the other side, yeah, there will be a 2 mark here, and there will also be a 2 mark here, and that's all fine. Looks like it will be good. So now you can see you cannot set it in a wrong way. And yeah, then I can put in the helicoid key, and I will just take number 1 here. I mean, load a screwdriver before you put it in. it will make things a little easier. So there, and this is number 1. Yeah, should just add a little on the side of the key. Doesn't have to be much, but of course has to be something. So yeah, then I can put this in. It's number 1. Of course we have to set it this way here and put it in. Then turn the inner helicoid so it will sit correct. So that was almost that. And don't tighten the 2 screw, when I put the number 2 in, don't tighten the screws yet, because when you screw the focus helicoids a little back and forth, it will align the helicoid keys in place. So hopefully it will work. So, oh, I forgot to load a screw, but we'll do it anyway. So there, because the holes, the screw holes in the helicoid keys are a little bigger, so they can, when you move it, just a little. So let's see how it will work. Whoa. Feels really good. I mean, to me. So I will set it to near end, because then the helicoid keys are, in my opinion, easier to align and tighten the screws. Maybe I'm wrong. Could be the other have another meaning. That's good. So let's see how good it will be now. Yeah, wow. Really good feeling. Of course it will help with with a rubber focusing ring on, but I think this one is actually pretty good. So now I can we will have to measure, of course we have to. So we can see if anything, everything in this part is fine. From the front of the focusing ring, not here, from the front of the inner helicoid to the back is something like 34.99 at infinity. So I set all the 3 marks here in line, and hopefully we'll end it up to, well, maybe it has to be there. Something like that. It depends on how correct it sits. It's when I set the focusing ring on and align it all, I think it will be really, really fine. Yeah, I was a little off. So it should be there. So I think it's pretty good. So yeah, it has a good feeling, in my opinion. Oh yeah, we also have to have the the other measures from the front of the middle helicoid to the back is 24.51, and it will say from this part here, not on the front of the middle helicoid, but the next step here to the very back, and it should be something like that, which I think is pretty good. And let's see, the inner helicoid from front to the back of the middle helicoid. Yeah, I mean, now it's correct assembled. So I can just continue with the with putting on the index ring. Has to sit like this. Can only be set in one position, and of course I have my index mark here, my infinity mark here, so I can just put it on and put in the 3 screws. Where is it? Here. Says so, this one. And of course I will also loop the aperture ring, because and I clean that ring too. So, and the last screw on that index ring. Sometimes the gloves are a bit too big. I have to get another one. That's it. And now I can put on the spring, the click spring, and I will just load a screwdriver. It will make things a little easier with the small flathead screws. Yeah, there. And you see, again, it's a really good thing to use the rubber tools, to have the focusing parts stay in that, so it's much easier to put things together, because then we can just do this, catch the hole and catch the screw hole. Just a few turns, and then I can put this screw in here. So, and you can just align it a little. So I mean, here it looks like it's a bit too close to the edge here. So now it's better. So it's more straight. So, and tighten it good, not too much. So that's it. And yeah, what so as need to put on the focusing ring itself, and have to align the marks here, then put in the ring, and it's on infinity, so I can just put this on here. It has a stop itself. Oh, sorry. It has a stop itself at this point because of this. I hope you can see it. It's dark. So this there's another stop here for the near end, but this is for the infinity. Since I have aligned this, it should be all fine. And I can also see in here where I set the mark in the beginning. You can see those marked down here. They are all in line. So I can put in the brass ring and then a screw, align it here, then put in a little screw. Something like that. Hopefully. Nah, it will not catch. Yes, of course I should just use my my screwdriver, of course, load it before. So it will be all fine there. So don't tighten it yet. And then second screw. So let's see when put in the last screw how it will go. Oh, didn't come in. So there, and tighten the screws good. So, and the last screw. So let's see how it will work. Wow, feels really good. I really like this grease for this. It gives a good compromise between it's not too stiff and not too tight. But of course, it's someone liked one type of grease, someone like another. So it is. Now, then we need to put in the. I have to grease this before. First, because when I put in the back lens group here, I cannot access the helicoid. So it's better I give it some grease. And let's see, this way. So I will put it on the lens assembly and then give it some movement and wipe away the rest of it. Doesn't have to be too much. So that looks fine. Then I can put it on, and since I have all my marks here, especially the my infinity, my my starting point, which was this mark here, not this or this. And it's, of course, it has to go on to the off mark, where the thread comes off the back helicoid. Then I will turn it, give it some good movement, and you can see there is something on the back here, which I will wipe away. But it's really good, this one. So then I can wipe away the rest of it here. Doesn't have to be any grease in here. So and there was something here. It looks nice and fine. Just take away the the rest of it here. That's all good. And I can also take away the rest of it here if there is too much. And it's good to use a cotton bud in that way. And there is no small hairs or so. So now I can add my back lens group, which all look fine. And since I set a mark here, maybe it's difficult to see, you can see the little dot here. I will end up the same place where when I disassemble it. Catch the thread somewhere. It's here. There. So I should come all the way up to here and tighten it good. Yeah, so it is. So now I can put this in and continue with the rest of it. It should be something, I mean, not a problem. So we go here. Take care of not touch the back lens here. Just a little hair. See? And then catch the thread and go all the way. It will say as it is 1.5, almost 1.5 turn to off. So I have to go 1.5, almost 1.5 turn from where I put my back lens group into helicoid, catch the thread, so go 1 turn and a half turn until I came up to my infinity mark up here, and it was like this. But give it some good movement so the grease will be spread into it and has a really good feeling. So this is where the infinity is, and I can just measure if we are here and see how it will be. Sometimes it's a little difficult to measure that way. Not so. I think it will be something. Well, depends on how it's aligned to the mark. Sometimes it is a bit difficult to do. So yeah, something like 2.6. That's all fine. Then I can add the little bracket that has the connection from the back helicoid to the to this key in here, the front helicoid. So this sit there, and it also have to have some grease, which will be quite easy to put on. And have to see like this. So I can just add it here, and since I set 2 marks, I know the exact position of this key. Don't tighten it yet. There. So the two marks I set on each side of this helicoid key has to be aligned. You probably can see that there's one mark here, one mark here. So it will all be good. Just tighten the first screw gently, and then you can just tighten it the next one. So now it's all fine. Wow. So align it as infinity. Then I can put it in here. I have my guide pin here, my guide pin here on the lens assembly, and I have the guide gap here. I have the lens on infinity, so I should be able to just put it over here, and I should catch the inner helicoid key, and of course I need some grease, just a little amount. We can just go like this. Oh, of course I could also add it in here. Doesn't have to be much. So that's all fine. Then I can add it, align it as it should there. So I can put it straight in. Maybe you have to wiggle a little. No, it's all fine. So let's see how it will go. Wow! I mean, this is really good stuff. So just to be safe, I will add the name ring. Just put it in, and remember I set a mark up here. You can see it where the little screw, the mark that the set screw sets in the name ring here, and I also set a mark down here. It will be so much easier to find the position of the little set screw when I tighten it. So just find the thread, and it has to be tightened good. I'm not there yet. You can probably see it is. I know it's difficult. Yeah, you can see it there. So it should be something like that. And then with a screwdriver here, it has to be the 1.2. I can just screw it in. Maybe you have to align it a little and then tighten it good. So that's it. Wow, that's really good. I mean, I'm very impressed by this this grease. So I can add a little, just a little, and I will just wipe away. Maybe I should use a cotton bud instead to apply the grease. I mean, there should be something with the, where the click function is, has to be a little. So there. I think it will be all fine. I mean, I could just add a little amount of grease here just on this spring. Doesn't have to be much. Then add the aperture ring. Wow, nice and consistent click. Yeah, I think it sounds good. Maybe has to have a little more. This area, especially here, because it's where the ring goes onto the inner part here. Let's see if it's better. And of course, it's also good when there is some grease here on this part of the aperture ring. Maybe it's not correct, but well. So now that should be all fine. I can just put it on. Correct. Yeah. It gives a better feeling. And then I can use a cotton bud to then wipe away the rest of it. There might also be something on this this cam ring here, because it looks like there has been some old grease on this. So I think I will also add some. Doesn't have to be much, because it's when you move the aperture ring, it will go onto the back of the I will say like this. So it will be, no, of course, has to sit like this. Come on. So something like that. And yeah, maybe it's, I think I will add some in here so it goes against the little pin. Yeah, I think it will be all fine. And of course the black paint here it's also made it I think it has some kind of very, what do you say, slippery surface. So now I can add the what do you say, the mount, and the aperture has to set on 22. Then hold the lens like this with with this part downward. It will be much easier when you put on the little hook here onto the aperture connection pin in here. And there might also be some kind of little grease. I guess just a tiny part. So that's it. Because it will also move in and out. So now we can add it. I know it's difficult to see, but sometimes it's not so good with gloves. So we add it here. Then put it on. And then the more tricky part. It didn't go. No. Try again. Has to sit like this. It will say, come on. Of course it has to sit over here. So I was wrong. It has to sit like this. So the little lump here, I don't know what its name it is, but the pin has to sit against this area here. So the pin here that connects to the aperture ring, it will say this gap here. That's why the aperture ring has to set on 22. So now I can add the parts here, catch the pin here into the hook. Oh no, not the hook, the fork. So then we can try to move the aperture ring. It works actually. Wow. The function is also working. So I can add the screws into the mount. So there. Took a little longer, this lens, but it's more difficult to put together. I mean more, what do you say? It's different put together than other lenses. I mean Nikkor lenses. They are not all the same. Then I can add this part here. I don't know the name. It had to sit like this. 3 screws. Oh. So there. I think I got all the details in this lens, so you can find out to put it, I mean disassemble it and clean it and put it back in. Make sure you make your marks in here, because it's the only way, it's your only backup of how things is sitting. That's all fine. Wow. And again, there's a mark here. There is, mark here. And there is also a mark here on this ring, somewhere there. And I should end it up the same place when it's use my special tool here, and we can just set the lens to near end and tighten it good. Then add the rubber ring and say that's all fine. So then, wow, it works really good. So there was something on here. And there was nothing on the back except for some small hairs. That's all fine. Wow. Sometimes those hairs are really annoying. That was all for me in this case of a different lens. Hope you enjoy the content and can use the info. And remember to set the marks. That's the most important when working with helicoids. And measure, of course. That's all. See you. Bye bye.